Hello and welcome. Thank you for watching my video. I'm starting out on a 3-day motorcycle trip today. I'll be riding from Essex to Wales. I'm at Superbike Rental and Tours in Stondon Farm, which is in Stondon, Massey in Essex, and I'm going to be riding this 2018 Yamaha MT-07 Blue. It's exactly the same bike I have in Canada, but with a slight difference. So this business has been around for 25 years, but I'll tell you a little bit first about what I did the last couple of days, which was visiting some bike meets in Surrey with family members. I was visiting Newlands Corner and Rikers Box Hill. A lot of old bikes here, a lot of new ones, a lot of gorgeous bikes. I even had a Supermarine Spitfire fly right over my head. These are apparently two of the biggest bike meets in Surrey. Anyway, so as I was saying, I rented this bike from Superbike Rental and Tours in Stondon, Massey in Essex. They've been around for 25 years. They've not sponsored me in any way. I paid to rent this bike. Their rates are actually pretty competitive. I find them rather pricey, especially as I'm paying, Canadian dollars, which have to be converted. But it's £160 a day to rent this Yamaha MT-07. They have a lot of different types of bikes. The prices go all the way up to £275 per day, depending on the model. Insurance is included, and there's a security deposit, in this case £3,000. Just to hold. They have adventure bikes, sport bikes, classics, they have cruisers, anything you can imagine. Anyway, so I'm starting out. I'm riding on this first leg from Stondon, Massey, and I'll be going on to Ongar, which is not terribly far away. I'm riding from Stondon, Massey, as I said, and I'll be going all the way to Eryri, or Snowdonia in the north of Wales. I'll be backtracking through a lot of the places that I frequented in my youth. Stondon, Massey, incidentally, I think it means the stone hill is Stondon in Old English, and Massey comes from the name of a Norman knight. His name was Cerlo de Marcy. Anyway, it was originally an Anglo-Saxon settlement, of course, built on Celtic land. This was originally part of the territory of the Trinovantes. That was the Welsh tribe that was ruled by Queen Boudica. In the 5th century, obviously, it was taken over by Germanic Saxons and since then incorporated into the Kingdom of Essex and then eventually modern England. One thing to know about this bike, it is a 2018 Yamaha MT-07, however, it appears to have had the A2 kit installed to restrict the horsepower down from the stock 74 horsepower to 48 horsepower, and you can really feel the difference. It lacks that sort of aggressive response when you snap the throttle. But my bike, you snap the throttle, the front wheel's coming right up off the ground, and you don't get that with this one. It feels more similar to, let's say, my daughter's Yamaha R3 in power delivery. So as I said, I'm now in Ongar, which means grassland apparently in Old English. I can see why it's called that. It'll be on the hedges and houses, it's all flat fields. One advantage to this bike having less power than a stock MT-07 is that it's less stress for the suspension, so the handling is actually a little bit better, and also the brake performance. Alright, this little village is called A Bridge. Let's see if you can guess how it got its name. It's actually named after a bridge over the River Roding, which is on the road to Theydon Bois. Quite a small town, a village, but it's very pretty. Love the architecture. We got a little turned around here. I missed the turn off for the bridge, so I'm going back. Past the pub, which is apparently the centre of the community. It's called the New Boar. Apparently the old pub, which was on the same site, was called the Blue Boar. I haven't found out what happened to it. That's the bridge right there. I just crossed a bridge. So this is actually my first time back in the UK in quite a long time. I was last year in 2010 for one day, before that in 1998 for a wedding in Glasgow, and prior to that probably sometime in the late 90s or mid 1990s. It's been quite a long time. I'll be revisiting a lot of the places that I visited in my youth. I'm feeling rather nostalgic about it, but at the same time it's a little sad because I'm already seeing so much has changed. This town is called Rugby. It's in Warwickshire. There's a population of about 114,000 people as of 2021. It was part of the ancient territory of the Welsh tribe known as the Dobuni, which was incorporated into the Roman Empire in AD 43 and remained so until AD 409. Following the end of Roman rule, the lands of the Dobuni returned to native rule, meaning the Welsh, until the Battle of Dorham in 577, when they were captured by the West Saxons. And in the 7th century, they fell under the control of the Anglo-Saxon Kingdom of Mercia. Rugby actually began as a small settlement watching over the River Avon, which was the boundary between the territory of the Dobuni and another Welsh tribe called the I'm going to screw this up, Talvi, or the Coritani. Now the River Avon is actually a Welsh word for river, so River Avon literally means river. So again, it was a Welsh settlement that was taken over by the Anglo-Saxons in about 560 AD, and by the year 1086 it was recorded in the Domesday Book as Rochbury. The origin of the name has not yet been agreed, but it may have been either Welsh or Old English. Rugby became a market town in the year 1255, and it's the home of the Rugby School establishment, established in 1567, which is where rugby football was created. And this church we're passing is St. Andrew's Church. It was built in the 13th or the 14th century, but was first mentioned in written records in 1140 AD as a chapel. I should mention about my use of the words Welsh and Britons. So Welsh is actually an Old English word meaning foreigner. It was used by the Anglo-Saxons and Jutes and other Germanic tribes when they arrived to describe the indigenous Celtic Britons who had been here before. The word was actually borrowed into Germanic languages, however, from the name of a Gaulish tribe. That's a continental Celtic tribe called the Volcae, whose territory bordered that of the Germanic peoples. The Germanic peoples also use the word Welsh to describe Romans and other non-Celtic peoples who lived in the Roman Empire, such as the Romanians, who they call the Wallachs. The only surviving Welsh nations in Britain today are Wales and Cornwall, although there were Welsh-speaking communities that survived in England until the Middle Ages, and in some cases as late as the 19th century. Cornwall was also annexed by England in the 19th century, but it retains a Cornish ethnic identity. Alright, now I'm going to head towards Rockingham. Fortunately, the traffic here is a little lighter than what I experienced after leaving Essex. I'm trying to stick to the speed limit as much as possible. One thing I've noticed here is an awful lot of signs warning about the presence of speed cameras. I don't know to what extent I can actually trust them to be actually installed, but I have seen more speed cameras already than I've seen in my entire life. So I'm taking it pretty seriously. Hello to you too. Don't know what that car is called, but I remember seeing quite a few of them on the roads when I was young. And even then they're in the hands of collectors. Pretty buildings. This is Market Hayboro, I believe. Right by the sign that this place is somehow associated with the, I think it's called Land Rover Discovery Experience, something like that, which is further back down the road. Another motorcycle. I think the roads in this area are actually fairly well suited to bikes like Harleys. A lot of twisties. Countryside in England is quite different from what we get in Western Canada. Here is mostly rural, so you have a lot of villages and towns, but you know, it's quite densely populated despite what you would expect. Lots and lots of farm fields, quite a lot of roads crisscrossing. This road here will take us to Uppingham. Nice views, but I wish I was a little bit higher so I could get a better view over the hedge. I'm surprised how quickly I readjusted to riding on the left side of the road. Obviously I spent the first 30 years of my life or so riding on the left side. I only had one moment so far on this journey and that's when I was doing a U-turn on a side street where I accidentally went to the wrong side, but so far I'm doing pretty well. Right, so I'm now entering the town of Uppingham. The last time I was here was 34 years ago. I was visiting two friends who were in school here, one a boy and one a girl. The public school in Uppingham is quite famous apparently, and the town also has a well-earned reputation as being a centre of art and culture in the Midlands. We're about 98 miles from my starting point at Stondon Massey in Essex. The total journey today will be about 243 miles to get to the northwest of Wales, which is about almost 400 kilometers. 98 miles, by the way, is 157 kilometers or 158 kilometers. Different seeing this town in the summertime. The last time I was here would have been in autumn or winter. Why my Harley friend? Surprised to see a Yamaha and Harley dealership. Don't see that in Canada generally. It's usually Harley Davidson on its own. Anyway, that was downtown Uppingham. As I said, I'm about 98 miles or 2 hours into my journey. 3 more hours to go, in theory. Really tell, I'm sure, on video, but I'm sticking to the speed limit. See, there's another speed camera sign. Do I see any cameras here? No. Better safe than sorry. If there's any tickets that are received on this bike after I return it, I'll have to pay for them. Temperature's bearable in this jacket I'm wearing, which is highly ventilated, as long as I'm moving like I am now, but definitely when the traffic was bad and when I was passing through those 20 mile per hour stretches, 20, 30 mile per hour stretches, the heat was atrocious. I find these straight roads a little bit boring, if I'm being honest, but I'm sure I'll be happier once I get to Wales. Just going to take a little bit of a break now. I've been riding for a while. And just take a break from the heat and from being on this saddle. The seat of this bike is exactly the same as the seat of my bike, which means it's not very comfortable for long rides. Water you can see ahead of us is Rutland Water. This is actually the territory of one of my favorite YouTube channels, Mr. Darcy and the Old Man. I know they live in this area, I'm assuming, and seem to spend a lot of time generally in Oakham and around Rutland Water. Okay, so I had a little break at the Linden Nature Reserve. I would have liked to have gone out to photograph the ospreys and other bird life, but unfortunately I didn't bring any of my long lenses from Canada with me. I actually did a wedding shoot on my first day in England, and I didn't need any short lenses for that. I got rather a lot to carry already, so bringing long lenses for wildlife wouldn't have made much sense. Particularly as we have more, how can I put it, exciting wildlife options in Canada. So I'll share some of my wildlife photography on this channel at some point. Heading back in the direction of Uppingham now, but not for very long. Look at the map. I've got to go past Birmingham, and I was hoping to find an alternate route that would involve less traffic. We'll just have to see how this works out. I'm actually adding a lot of unnecessary miles to my journey. I was on the M6 motorway and I got off to get fuel, and then just coincidentally I happened to get off in Rugby, and when I looked at the map I saw it wasn't terribly far from Uppingham, and so that's why I decided to take a detour this way. I'm going to jump on the A46 when I get to Preston, and then that should take me to Leicester, and then at some point I should end up back on the motorway. pretty area, but doesn't really appeal to me much. I can't say I particularly want to live here. It just, after living in British Columbia for so long, it feels very, very flat. I realise it's not. It's actually hilly, but the hills are very low. And the sky looks empty and naked to me. If you haven't visited British Columbia, then perhaps somewhere like Switzerland or the Alps in Europe would give you an idea of what I'm talking about. You're completely hemmed in by mountains. I am in Leicester. Traffic has been quite atrocious. Stop and go is unpleasant at the best of times, but in this heat it is quite terrible. It's been quite cool in Vancouver up to this point. This is a bit of a shock for me. I can't think of anything to tell you of interest about Leicester, except I did have a friend of my mother's when I was young, who we were quite close with. I used to babysit her kids when I was a teenager, and she was from Leicester, so I have to send her a message and let her know I visited her hometown. Never understood why it was pronounced Leicester. It's spelled Leicester. I'm going to assume it's from Latin. Leicester. One thing I'm not sure about here is, am I permitted to lane filter? Not allowed to lane filter at all in Vancouver, but it would make my life a lot less. Well, it's nice to be moving again. Croeso I Cymru and Croeso I Francesiste. Apologise if I butchered the name of the village. I did study Welsh a bit when I was younger, but I'm nowhere near proficient in it. So this is an interesting village. It has a lot of history. It's quite small, but it's home to an aqueduct that is a World Heritage Site. I actually crossed into Wales about 5 minutes ago, so it's quite close to the border. Great to be back here. It's been a very long time. I think again more than 30 years since I've been here, probably about 1994. This is actually, Wales is actually where I first rode a large motorcycle. I started out when I was young on 50cc mopeds and scooters when I was 16, and then once I was 18 I moved up to 100, 125cc bikes, which is what we were legally permitted to ride. So the first large motorcycle I ever rode was here in Wales, in Bridgend, actually, down in the south near Cardiff. It was a Honda CBX 1000 6-cylinder motorcycle, which to me it just felt absolutely huge. The engine stuck out on either side like airplane wings. It was a very different experience from the small 100cc, 125cc two-strokes singles that I'd been riding up until that point. And it was embedded permanently in my mind, as was Wales. Combi. Sadly, I will not be able to reconnect with any of the friends of my youth while I'm here. It's too short a notice, and most of them seem to have moved down south to Cardiff. But hopefully another time. Two areas that I am most familiar with are actually Gwynedd and Bangor specifically, and again Bridgend area, Pennybont in South Wales. Really enjoying the roads much more here. The only thing I don't like is the 20-mile-per-hour zones anytime there's any trace of a village or houses. The sun is getting very low in the sky. Hopefully I will be making it to my destination before sundown, but we shall see. In theory, I'm about 200, a little over 200 miles into my journey from my starting point at Stondon Massey. It's probably longer than that. I imagine I added quite a bit of distance and time by going through Uppingham. Certainly, I'm definitely several hours behind schedule. It's been a long day. I actually started my day in Surrey, in Guildford. I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to catch a taxi at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I was up before that. The taxi, of course, was late. But it's been a very long day up to this point. Richie, now entering Llangollen. Again, I apologise for butchering the name. I always have difficulty with the llaw. Like all the names here, there's actually a story behind it. Although we get a lot of the same names that tend to pop up in Canada, they don't really have any meaning aside from the hometowns of the people that moved in. But it's named after a 7th century monk named St. Colin. I'm sure most people would probably call him Colin. He founded a church in this area. Llan means a religious settlement, and his name is the other part. There is also a town called Cullan in Cornwall and another one called Llangollen in Brittany, which were probably named after the same saint. He was said to have been the son of Gunnar Caldon. Probably making a mess of that name as well. And he was said to have travelled as a soldier to foreign lands before returning to Britain, where he became the abbot of Glastonbury. Population is about 3,600. It's situated on the Dee River at the end of the Dee Valley in what was the territory of the ancient Welsh tribe, the Ordovices, or Ordovic, which means hammer fighters. Its successor was the Kingdom of Powys and the Powys Fagog. There's a castle near here called Castell Dinas Bras, which was a stronghold of the princes of Powys Fagog. It's only 1.3 miles outside of the town. Try and remember my Welsh phonetics. F is a V. That's what I recall generally if it's a single F. believe how many times I've pulled over to let faster moving vehicles go by. So again, 20 mile per hour speed limit through here. I'm the only one doing 20 miles per hour through these low speed zones. I will assume all the locals know where the cameras really are and where they aren't. Such a pretty town. Beautiful red church. I'll have to look that up. I'm sure there's a history behind it. Motorcycles. If you're curious about why I'm so interested in Welsh history, it's partially because of the time I spent here in my youth and all of my Welsh friends. Also, my mother was actually in a long-term relationship many years ago with a very prominent Welsh actor, television actor, who since passed away. And through him, he really inculcated an interest in the Welsh language and Welsh culture and history in my conversations with him. So I have actually studied ancient Welsh history pretty extensively, and also the mythology. I read through the Mabinogion, and although I'm not Welsh, I do have some Welsh ancestry, but I'm a bit of a Welsh nationalist. I'm enjoying experiencing this area by motorcycle. I've only ridden in the south of Wales before. This is my first time riding up here, and I've always used train and bus as my means of transportation here in my youth. So experiencing and seeing more of the countryside. I'm beginning to have a strong dislike for that word, haraf, which means slow. This is Glyndwrdwy. This is another area that has a lot of history behind it. The village was established in the year 1400 AD, and it was home to the national hero Owen Glyndwr, who was a local baron. He was declared here the last true native Prince of Wales. I think that's Faisal Cymru. And it began a rebellion that lasted 14 or 15 years against English rule. Then ended with his death in the year 1415. Although bear in mind, he was never captured by the English. He lived in hiding after the end of the rebellion, and his death, I believe, was reported in 1415, but I don't think that anyone ever found. I don't think that the location where he was hiding was ever discovered, and I don't think his body was ever revealed. This is Cordovan. Like Llangollen, it's located on the River Dee. It's a population of about 2,325 people. In the past, it was a center for cattle drovers. Its economy was primarily based on agriculture. Apparently there's a statue of Owen Glyndwr in the town square, but I don't have time to have a look. Look at all those towns and villages, it's very pretty. notice the architecture and materials are also more varied than what I saw in a lot of the small English towns and villages. There you see a lot of, let's say, everything was brick or everything was made out of the same yellow stone. And here there seems to be a lot more variety. I suppose partly because some of the buildings are painted. I see lots of use of stone and also timber. I'm about 220 miles from Stondon Massey in Essex, minus the extra distance I added by going through Buckingham. I should have been at my destination hours ago, but I've only got about 20 miles left to go. Although I can probably see the sun is getting very low in the sky, so I really am racing the sun. But an additional frustration to these low speed zones, and most of them are 20 miles per hour. I heard about them even before I came, but it's not just that there's so many of them and that they are generally quite lengthy. I also cannot always tell when I've left these 20 mile per hour zones. It's not like in the system in Canada where when you return to the maximum speed limit, there's a sign to tell you. Here they have signs telling you when you've entered a 20 mile per hour zone. They'll have constant reminders, but nothing really to tell you when you've left. So along here now I should be back up to 60 miles per hour according to the Garmin, but there's no sign to tell me that. Lots of sheep. Make it to where I'm going before that sun disappears. Well, this is just to let you know I did actually make it to my hotel, the Penny Gould Hotel, which is quite a bit of history. I'll tell you more about that in my next video from day 2. I'm at an elevation of 945 feet at the feet of Eryri, which is the highest mountain in Wales, or Snowdon. See you tomorrow.